minutes, we will be in the hot zone and on the X with the Hazmat guys. Today's roundtable topic is tips and tricks and what everybody's been up to. So welcome. You're at the table and in the zone.
All right.
So what's up, guys?
Ooh, that was wonderful, everybody.
It's incredible.
Oh, who didn't mute their phone?
Who's giving the feedback?
Oh my. I love it. No,
Well,
you know what? Everything's good. I honestly, it's been a while. 3 years we've been off the air, and now we're all back. Very exciting.
Yeah. I mean, geez, who would have known that Kosh would still be alive 3 years ago? I thought for sure after all those sausages, wine, and stogies that you post that you'd be long gone by now.
By the way, I'm in shorts and flip-flops, just for all you Northerners that are freezing your ass off right now.
Whatever. Hey, I did have this. I've got my makeshift green screen in here, and that's why it's so fuzzy. But the whole point of that was Kosh having trouble. So this is just in case he couldn't make it to the show. I had this ready right here.
I love you.
Yeah. For those of you that haven't been around since when we were back on, Bob was always plagued by the green monster of technology issues. But I think we've upgraded him to the point where he is off of DOS or something.
I'm on probation.
No miming, nothing. We're all good now. Thank you, Brian. So, what do we start now with here?
All right. Well, let's start off with a quick hello. And for those of you who do not know what we do and what we are the just a couple of jackass hazmat people that get on every once in a while, and we're going to be doing this every month, and we're going to be talking about anything that is hazmat related throughout the country or the world. So why don't we go around for those that haven't seen us and do a quick little intro?
All right.
Well, I'm tonight's host, Jason Rogers. I'll go first. I am in the Midwest, just about a half an hour or so north of Indianapolis. For those of you that visit FDIC, you come and wreck shop in my hometown and then go on. So we've got a hazmat team here in Delaware County, and we cover about 400 square miles, and got about 20 members, and we're a on-call team. So that's me. For those of you that don't know me, if you've been to any of my classes, either Baltimore, Florida, where were we just at? Massachusetts, I don't know, Virginia. I think we've all kind of made the circuit. So know a few people. So hello to those of you that know me, and mazel tov for the ones that don't. So you're lucky.
And one of the things I will say that Jason brings more of a, in addition to the hazmat flavor, he brings the EMS flavor.
You got a little experience in that too.
Yeah.
Which is a flavor most people try to spit out.
Yes. Right. Yes.
Bob, what about you?
Bob Costignano recently retired from the City of Orlando Fire Department. And after 30 years in the fire service, I'm done. So I sit out back, smoke cigars, drink wine, and play golf. Oh, that's right. And run around with these nuts and teach here and there around the country. And, we try to have a good time, but we went off the air. We did this show a few years ago, and everybody's got busy with different parts in their lives. And so we brought it back, and we're glad. We had a lot of people that missed it, and we missed you. And so here we are.
Mike?
Well, my name is Michael Monaco, and I'm a Hazmat Company 1 member from the New York City Fire Department. 17 years on the job, 14 in Hazmat, and I gallivant around the country and talk in front of groups of 2 or 3 and have a good time doing it.
Yeah, and I'm Bobby. Nobody. I sweep up the place at night. I just happen to sit down in this chair at the right time.
You're taking the garbage out.
I'm the other half of the Hazmat guys, but Mike, I'm Bobby Salveson, and I'm also part of a major metropolitan fire department for about 23 years, and I've been Hazmat for a while of that. And when these two knuckleheads, Jason and Bob, said, we're putting a band back together, I was like, dude, I am so in. Now Bob Lundgren's banging on the Yankees, which Me and Mike are oh my God,
Is it-
Yankees.
Is baseball season over?
I don't know. Who cares?
I don't know either.
They were saying something about a big game.
I don't know. The hockey was on, I think.
Whatever. It doesn't matter.
I don't know.
Yeah, whatever. Go watch the game and not us. I don't care.
So they came here for some hazmatting. So what do we got? Oh wait, you know what? Can we 2 seconds?
We can do whatever we want.
All right.
True.
So Jason, tell us about the advertising.
So the really cool thing about this show is we're here for the little guys. And Bobby and I kind of had some offline conversations about we want to get everybody involved in this. So if you want a spot on the show, you see the banner across the top. Can everybody see that? I can't see it. So if Salveson screwed it up, that's completely on him, and he needs to pay back the sponsors for tonight's show. But if you want to be part of that, I mean, we're talking everything from I'm calling it the piano bar of podcasting.
Ooh, I like that.
If you would like to have, if Mike Kimura would like to say happy birthday to Creepy Bob, you can have it up here in the corner for just a couple of dollars. Or anybody, anything you want to put it up there. We've got a spot for it. But we're gonna see some sponsors, and we want it to be affordable for everybody. So you could be a major show sponsor and get some of the major hang time, I guess, for your advertising. But we kind of like the piano bar idea, where you go up and say, hey, my wife's a pain in the butt. And
Yeah,
blah, blah,
I'll
blah.
put whatever you want.
I clean that up.
Anything up there.
The
guys,
ideas
listen,
are flowing now.
This is the reason why we're doing the advertising, is because right now we're only live streaming to YouTube, right? And we are trying to extend that reach out to Facebook on multiple pages, and that actually costs a couple bucks. Our ultimate long-range goal is to actually be able to send a random listener to Baltimore, all expenses paid. So with whatever slush money we have left over, this is not like, oh, we're going to be going to steak dinners and everything like that, but
on top of the steak dinners.
Right. If you go in and you go to streamlabs.com/the Hazmat Guys and you make a donation, you'll see that tip cup in the bottom right-hand side. You'll see a couple of coins going in there, and it will go directly into the pot. And then at the end of the year, and your name will flash across the screen and all that jazz. So the donations and the sponsorships will all move us towards getting bigger exposure, more people involved in the community, and hopefully getting us to that goal of where we want to send a couple of guys on scholarship to expand their knowledge and their base. So,
and if it doesn't work and we end up with $6, then everybody gets a Pabst Blue Ribbon.
Yeah, a PBR for everybody. Good stuff.
And always remember, everybody that's listening, that this whole thing, we don't know everything. We learned so much from the people that chimed in when we were doing the show in the past. So, and we even got called out on stuff. So we are nowhere near experts. Please chime in, and we'll tell you where to go. No, I'm just kidding. We will really listen and take what you have to say, because we learn. The old saying, when you're through learning, you're through. So.
Yeah, this is a virtual version. Wow, I can't speak. A virtual version of basically just sitting around a pub, having a couple drinks, and talking about learning from each other and just shooting the shit. So
Somebody's
all
typing.
Right, so in this,
Lundgren says that Kosh sounds like he's podcasting, YouTubing from the men's room at a Love's gas station along I-75.
I don't see any holes in those walls. I don't think he's where he normally is.
I am not where I'm normally at. All I can say is I'm at a secret location.
Undisclosed location.
Undisclosed, top secret, and that's all I'm allowed to say by punishment of death.
Fair enough.
I'm currently in the Hazmat Guys server room.
That's
as you can see.
I'm in my lair.
I'm in a crack house. All right. So in this, we've been off the air for a few years now, and one of the things that we liked to do when we got on is talk about any kind of runs that we had that may have been something that we learned. Since we haven't done that for quite some time, we're not going to go through 3 years worth of runs, but I'd like to run past each of you and ask in this time frame, give us something that was like a holy crap moment. Like in these 3 years, something that you've learned, an event that happened that really made you open your eyes, just anything that was like, holy crap, this is what I want to tell the world about.
Who's starting?
First of all, the buildup of what you just did is not at all what I got in the email. Hey, just mention something that you might be an easy trick. You just said, hey, by the way, you played in the Super Bowl and ran back a 100-yard kick, or pick six or whatever, and you just made that into something huge. I got like the nugget of nuggets.
So
for you.
Do what the rest of us do and just make it up.
Lie, just completely lie. He's such a jackass.
All right. So
I can start it out. You want me to start it out?
Okay, go ahead.
All right. So we mentioned this rapidly on the podcast and it really comes down to like a major confirmation bias that I was enrolled in. We had a run for a unloaded liquid on the street. It was off gassing. There was like a vapor coming off it, and I was committed to thinking it was something that was rather benign. And when one of our techniques where I work is that we take pH paper and we put it on our sleeves with some, chem tape. And when I was reaching down to apply the Speed Dry, I didn't notice out of my periphery of my vision that it went red. Not that I was in contact with it, but I was in the vicinity of it in an outdoor, area. And I was like, yeah, but it's still looking like it's Y. Not just, and all these things are starting to stack up against me. And I keep making them fit, the square peg fit into the round hole. And I kept driving down that Y route, even though I was giving all of the information that this was a X route. And I tell you what, and incident commanders, they listen to us, and with the podcast and just our general rapport on the job now is when these two guys talk, you generally want to listen to them. And I did a great disservice for myself and for our job, because I told the chief that it all worked out, luckily, like everything mostly does. But I told the chief, yeah, it's all good, man. We're gonna be all right, and it all worked out. But when I got in the rig and we were driving back, I was like, that was so freaking stupid, man. That was absolutely amateur hour, not worthy of me just showing up. The whole scene would have been better served if I didn't show up.
Yeah, I kind of have a very, very similar confirmation, but like I can almost one-up you on the confirmation bias story.
Please do.
All right, so your confirmation bias dealt with meters and reading the information that you were gathering, right? Mine is literally not reading. Where and I think we discussed this on the podcast as well. We had a CO2 emergency in the basement of a very large fast food chain restaurant with golden arches. And in the basement of this restaurant, we go into the various rooms, and there's not really that many readings. We walk into the syrup room, and there it is, like the freaking, now this is Manhattan, right? So it's a huge room with two giant stainless steel tanks. We've got syrup all the way on the other end. We got tubes flowing everywhere, and our readings start to go through the roof, and we're like, well, this is it. This is where the leak is. And we look around, and I see, the stainless steel tanks for the CO2, and I see the syrup, and starting to follow lines, trying to figure out where the leak is. And we can't figure out exactly where the leak is. So you're like, all right, you know what? We're just going to just turn off the valves and just see what happens. So I'm looking at the stainless steel tank, the CO2 tank, and it doesn't look like any other CO2 tank I've ever seen before in my life. It has one single tube coming out of it, and that tube has got like dark stuff in it. So I'm like, oh, that's really weird. Like, tube has got like dark this stuff tube somehow developed, like, got syrup in it. Well, there must be a leak. It must have depressurized. The syrup must have gotten pushed back towards the tank. Like, there's definitely some kind of a problem. And then I'm like, boy, there's no valving on it. And I'm like, well, maybe since the people at McDonald's work here, they are kind of like, we've developed like an idiot-proof tank, that you don't have to deal with anything. So I'm going through. I'm like, all right, well, we'll shut down and turn off the valves. And as we're turning off the valves and we're waiting a little bit, the CO2 levels start to drop. And I'm like, all right, cool. Like, we got this tank and we shut off the valves and now we're just ventilating. Great. So it's about 15 minutes later, we're letting all the levels drop. And this almost brand new guy that we had with us, he turns to me and he goes, hey, Mike. I'm like, yeah. He goes, and you could tell he's like nervous, like trepidation. And he's like, I don't mean to like question what you're saying. He goes, but I don't think that's the CO2 tank. I'm like, oh. I'm like, okay. Why? Like, what's your thought process? And he's like, well, it says Coke syrup right on the barrel. It looks like there's Coke syrup in the line. And as
That's
I
what you're gonna be like, good
like,
point.
all right, I'm not talking about like a little tiny words. I'm talking like 5-inch letters.
Like, you had to look around it, right?
I couldn't not see the sign that says Coke syrup. And then the one next to it said Diet Coke syrup. And I'm like, oh my God. But what made it worse was that we had already done the transmissions, already told them that we isolated the tank. And now we look around, there's no CO2 tank anywhere. So we're like, holy crap, something is leaking from somewhere. It's not coming from this room. And we already told the incident commander that everything was, good to go. So what the hell? So we very quickly rectified the situation without anybody knowing. But that's my little comment.
Awesome.
Bob, what do you got?
Not much, because I lead a very simple life.
Thanks for playing.
It goes back a little longer than the 3 years that we were talking about, and Mike actually did an interview with me on a explosion that we had downtown Orlando. But to kind of set the pace, that we were downtown Orlando, we got hit for an explosion, multiple calls, blah blah blah, and we went there as the first new engine company, but also part of the hazmat team. And when we pulled up, it looked like a gas explosion. I was so convinced it was a gas explosion. Probably spent an extra 5 minutes looking for the damn gas meter. And so we got around the front of the building, and the guy said, oh no, I make this green gas and put it in these 150-pound cylinders, and one blew up, which was evident by the big gaping hole in the back of his building. And basically what this thing was called carbohydrilium, and it's a homemade gas that you use for cooking and torch work and whatnot. And in the interview that Mike did on the Hazmat Guys podcast, we talked through a little bit about it, because when we asked for an MSDS sheet, he literally pulled out of his pocket this napkin and opened it up and handed it to me. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. I've never seen anything like that in my life. So we had to kind of work our way backwards from what happened as far as the incident to what this stuff can do and still do. And he said, yeah, by the way, there's 13 more bottles in there. So that was a oh shit moment. I guess we could say that because it's our channel. And we had to figure out a couple plans on what to do. So anyway, long story short, is after we decided we can't send the bomb robot in because of all the debris. We can't send a bomb technician in there because he's going to trip over the debris. We got to find two stooges to do it. Hi, meet stooge number one. And my fireman was stooge number two, and he was putting his earplugs in, and somebody said, hey, Ed, what are you doing? He said, I don't want to hear myself blow up. which was a little unsettling. But basically, what we ended up doing is dragging a 3-inch hose line in, doing hydraulic ventilation with each tank that we found, using air monitoring. So when we turned the gas on, we had 77% LEL. When we started the hydraulic ventilation, pushing the gas out this big gaping hole, we dropped down to, I think it was like 3 or 5%. And we dragged that hose line through the building for the next 6 hours until we found all the bottles and marked them as, emptied and whatnot. And oh, did I mention that was my first day back from being off with a back injury for a month? Yeah, it was good times. Not really. So that's a short one. But if you want to hear more details about it, you can go to the Haz Mat Guys podcast and under interviews, I think it is, and we do an interview about it.
Yeah, it's not very long ago. It's maybe like a couple episodes ago, maybe 10.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. Jason?
So I'm going back to the bread and butter calls. We had it was actually a beer truck. Was making a delivery, and they turn into this bar, and I guess this is to try to corral all of the intoxicated people stumbling to their cars, but they actually had like angle iron that had chain welded to it. And somebody over the years, they've been hit or whatnot, and one of the pieces was pointing towards the parking lot. So beer truck driver pulls in and doesn't see the angle iron and punctures a hole in his saddle tank. Now, bread and butter call, no big deal, right? Except they couldn't get it to stop. And so we got called, and we got a new tech on the truck, and I'm there, and I said, hey, have you got to use any of this new product? And I'm not going to say the product because they could be a potential sponsor. But this kind of goes true for any product, right? So whether you're talking putty or you're talking Flex Seal or whatever it is that you're gonna use, right? I'm talking this up. Hey, we just did this in training. You just mix this putty up, or you get this golf ball wet, or you do whatever you do, and you're going to do that. So the hole itself. The first new engine company took, which is a pretty ingenious idea, but they took paper towel, wadded it up, stuck it in the hole, made a wick, and it was filling up a trash can until we could get there. So they were calling a tow truck and all this sort of thing. And I said, hey, we got this stuff. We're gonna do this, and we're gonna be badasses.
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
They were using the paper towel to capillary wick it out as like a pipe.
Yeah. Into a trash can. It was working. I mean, it wasn't.
I gotta see that. I gotta see that work.
It wasn't. I think
I could definitely think about it. I may
see it. I may have pictures of it. So I'll send them to you. But I'll have to go back and look. But anyway, so it was a pretty good idea. I mean, it was a trash can out of the bar. So I'm all, hey, we got this new stuff. It's all great. We spent all this money, blah, 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 blah. Well, the hole itself was not quite big enough for you to stick your pinky finger in. And so I'm using this new device, and it's not working. And the problem is the hole, and this is kind of crazy to think about, but the hole wasn't big enough. So I needed to make the hole bigger to give myself kind of the, I guess, surface area for my putty device to kind of get in there and grab. So I would have been better served, going in there and then kind of rooting it out and open it up like a pop can a little bit, and then make it better. But so long story short, they were able to eventually drive it away. But this great device that I said we were going to have it wrapped up in like 10 minutes took me like a half an hour. So if you got a hole this big, it's great. But if you got a hole that big, it's going to take some work. So just thinking outside the box just a little bit. But
I'd like to throw something out on that, because that's a question I have, and you just said something that I don't have the answer. So I'm kind of asking the crowd. I'm asking you three. If you have a leak, let's just call it a saddle tank, right? Because everybody understands it. And I have a pinky hole size hole inside of the saddle tank, and I want to make it bigger, and it's under the liquid line. How are you guys doing it? I mean, if I stick a drill into it, even pneumatic or whatever, forget the flammability. I'm just going to make a mess. I can't just take a Halligan or a pry bar and start jacking it into there. You can't start swinging an axe. The incident commander is going to blow his mind. How do you make it go faster? What's your thought? I mean, like, does anybody have... honestly, I would love to... I will try that. That's why I was so intrigued when you said that they used some paper towels as a wick. I can definitely see how they did it, but I don't think it would increase the flow rate.
By the time we got there, the liquid level was at the hole. So I mean, enough had leaked out that.
So they were using that to kind of jump it over the hole.
Yeah. I mean, the diesel fuel was all over the ground. They were just trying to minimize what they could do. So, minimize more of the spill. So as they're throwing down oil dry, they're trying to keep it, I guess, quartered into this trash can. But it had leaked down right to that spot. So I was dealing with right at the liquid level. And I can tell you what I did there. I mean, it took some forethought for me to go, I don't have enough surface area. The sides aren't jagged enough. What am I doing wrong? And I just took a flathead screwdriver and kind of went in there and cranked on it until the hole was big enough. And did I get a little bit more of a leak? Yeah, but we put a pop-up pool down, so I was working inside a kind of that.
I'm thinking like a
area.
Cone where you can drive a cone, like an actual cone. You drive it in there, but again, like the incident commander doesn't want to see you
banging
smacking a cone with a sledgehammer or something.
Well, my thing was this guy we're going to save him the tow bill. This poor beer truck delivery guy, I wanted him to drive his truck away after what we had done, and that was kind of what I was trying to prove. The product we were using said you could do that. I heard that one time, and that's what hey, the rubber, the wood plug idea, great idea, but then we'd have to pump it off. I wanted him to be able to drive it away.
See, I don't trust them. I'm
Yeah.
sorry, I don't. Oh, we got a first donation. I see. Donate. There's money going in the thing.
Oh, that's got to be my mom.
It might be.
Thanks, Mom.
I'll have to fix the donation thing. I gotta make that bigger. That's yeah. I guess the wooden, the wooden cone would work fine. But like,
No, I have never gotten a wooden cone to really increase the size of a hole, right? It usually warps itself, unless it's like a really
it
thin,
disintegrates as you smash it in.
right? Or it doesn't actually stop the leak; it just slows it down. It gets jammed in there, or the thing falls out at some point. Like I always feel like I'm trying to like get a belt and strap the cone into the hole, because it's always, I don't know. I've never come across like a perfect circle to shove a cone in and actually had it work.
Yeah, I've never been successful in that too. I'm always thinking, well, if I just take a drill.
Yes.
And I'm like, no, that's gonna be stupid, man. I'm gonna be like, dude, you gotta think. I'm thinking about gasoline and stuff like that. I'm like, that's never going to work out right. It's always going to go sideways. I'm going to be wearing most of the gasoline, and then everybody's going to be laughing at me as somebody lights a smoke off my bald head.
Fire Marshal Bill. I just
Yeah,
see that.
let me show you guys how that.
Yeah.
And I'm on fire, running around, and everybody's pointing and laughing like in middle school. I'm not doing that again. I'm just not doing it.
We most of the time, just so the guys would get practice, would let them drill the tank.
Right.
We just turn into a train evolution, let them drill the tank instead of like what you're talking about, making a hole somewhere else and making the problem worse.
Well,
there's been a couple settled tanks where we've seen like a little nut on the bottom side of it where we slide the catch base underneath of it and somebody will pop the nut but it takes forever to drain out.
Yeah.
And normally that's what I'm saying. Normally we would pump it off. We've got a little roughneck pump, and it just, you're talking 10 minutes and get that out of there. But my point was let's use this new product and see if it does what it says it's going to do. And we eventually were successful, but it was a little bit more challenging than what the advertising said.
All right, I'm just going to call these two things out because I just figured out how to actually see what the donations were. Creepy Bob donated, and he says Yankees suck, and Kimura is touching himself. And TB Metal Art donated as well. Thank you so much to both of you. You're moving the ship forward. I'm glad to see Todd's listening. He is the Google of Haz Mat. I will be calling on him shortly, not tonight, but soon, to come on this show and I guess give us his knowledge. I'll say that nicely. I'll say give us his knowledge. But
that guy's intimidating.
He is. He's
intimidatingly nice. Here's the thing. He's intimidatingly nice.
He is one of the nicest.
I mean, really,
people.
seriously.
I'm Mike B. Flex Seal. We joked about it. We laughed, and we tried it at the firehouse, and it works. I will say it. It doesn't hold for long, but again, in our business, it's not stopping. It's sometimes slowing. And so it does do a pretty effective job of slowing it down. What the hell is that guy's name? The guy
look at Mike's daughter.
Yeah, I know. It's like shoveling sand against the ocean. It's just you can't stop it. But that stuff does work pretty well. I would like to try other things. I don't know what it would be, but if anybody has anything that they want to try out, we've actually, and I'll leave it. I don't know. This will be my last thing about this whole moving it faster. It was just kind of an ancillary thing I thought of. Is that me and Mike kind of came up with this. I'll post pictures of it. It's just basically a fixture that puts 2 to 3 pounds of pressure on the fill pipe, and so all it does is it really pushes, gives a little pressure push to get it out the hole. And it really doesn't do an air exchange. One of our chiefs was freaking out. He's like, it's going to change the LEL, and now that whole headspace is going to be ready to go on fire. And I'm like, no, nothing's happening, because all it's doing is putting a little bit of a pressure push on the top. It's not a flush. So there's actually no flow into the tank. It's just a pressure push. And they wanted nitrogen. Remember that, Mike? They wanted us to put nitrogen down.
It worked great.
It works great.
Really great. And even if we did have an LEL inside the tank, where's the spark? We're draining the tank with who's are there little elves in there lighting matches and having stogie parties that we got to be concerned about?
Yeah.
Seriously, we have engines and pumps and all sorts of 3 feet from the car. We've got all sorts of sources of ignition, and he's worried about the inside of the tank.
Yeah. So if anybody's interested in that, just send us an email. Excuse me. You can send it to me at bob@thehazmatguys.com. I will send you pictures of it. It is super simple. It's probably just easy for me to record a video for you. But whatever. Anyway, what else we got tonight? I mean, we're at 33 minutes.
We just got our first show sponsorship. I got a text message from a friendly who is interested in sponsoring our first show. So I think we're well on our way to probably sending somebody to Baltimore. I mean,
I am so excited.
I think that's going to be super cool. We'll have to treat whoever this winner is. We got to have a contest, right? So somebody.
We do have. I did download a widget that is a live wheel spin. So it's like the Price is Right.
Nice.
And we're gonna be able to spin the wheel.
Can't we do a big Plinko board in Times Square?
They have that plugin as well. Yeah, they do have that stuff. If you're going to attempt to stop these things using plugs. Billy Kaler says, what PPE do you typically wear if you're going to try to attempt to stop things using plugs? I would imagine that will create a large mess.
Well, first we got to deal with the product.
Yes, so, products first.
Are we going to talk about, if we're talking about saddle tank, we're talking about diesel, I would probably be pretty comfortable in most conditions wearing like a Tyvek, a level C or a level B type of a suit. I don't know. Anybody else?
When we were doing the gasoline or diesel, depending what the I mean, either one of them, any of those pump offs, we actually had Nomex jumpsuits that we wore for a while. And then when they were out of date, out of service, whatever, we were fortunate enough to have 2 sets of bunker gear. So we used one for whatever operation, obviously trying not to get in the spill as much as possible. But if we did, then we were able to swap out into something else.
I'm going to throw this one out there, and I know it usually gets a couple of sideways looks, is I would have very little problem throwing a plastic cheapo B suit, like a splash suit, over my bunker gear before everybody calls in. let me preface. I know you cannot wear bunker gear under your splash suit and kind of cover 2 bases. What I'm doing is I'm using a cheapo plastic suit to keep my bunker gear clean, because the primary hazard is fire. So I'm using a nuisance suit, we'll call it. Let's change the narrative. Let's change the terminology. It is a nuisance suit. So we use Tyvek F suits by DuPont. They're great suits. And they provide us the splash or the prevention of absorption to my fire gear. And I still will wear my fire gear in there. So I get the abrasion, the puncture from my fire gear, my fire resistance, and then I use my Tyvek F to protect my gear from soaking up the diesel and whatnot. So, but that doesn't just absolve you from being common sense. Double glove, I do that. Yeah. I use nitrile, and then I usually go with I'm not going to say butyl. I don't do butyl very much.
Well, we'll do butyl if it's an acid. If you're dealing with an acid, you got to do a butyl glove.
Yeah.
For the most part, if we're doing, if we're doing like an oil type thing, we're doing a big Solvex glove. And if it's gasoline, we've got our fire gloves on, and we put the Solvex glove over it to keep the,
Yeah.
What's the difference between a butyl glove and a Solvex glove? Butyl gloves are, butyl rubber is extraordinarily resistant to acids. So you get a lot better chemical protection from a butyl glove. The butyl gloves almost look like something you'd disassemble a hooker with.
Truth.
They do come. I mean, you can get butyl though in
right, sweetheart.
Other thicknesses too. I mean, you can get basically medical gloves in butyl as well. But what you're talking about are like the big, what I would call the big Breaking Bad gloves, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what you need. You need those mega ones. So,
and you said the term when you said nuisance suit, Bobby. Instantly, I can hear your wife saying birthday suit at the same time, that as if they're synonymous.
Oh, truth. Yeah, that's absolutely a true thing. I'm gonna have to test it out in a little bit. We'll see which one's the more of a nuisance. I do have the plastic suit here, so I will check it out and see what's going on with that. So, do we have anything else to talk about tonight? We're on for 38 minutes. These clowns are 21 people listening to us right now. A debut that is in the record books. Very
sold
happy.
Sold out crowd, ladies and gentlemen. Sold
every
out.
seat taken, a seat for every ass.
Fuck one.
Literally.
All right. Well, I'm going to wrap it up because, as they say in show business, we're out of time.
Yes.
So thanks for taking a few minutes at the table with us today. Fellow Hazmatters, this show is a Hazmat Guys production and brought to you today by hazmat101consultants.com, where you can get all your training needs. So visit hazmat101consultants.com. So we'll see you in a month.